everyone, I'm Caitlin James from Scalp Micropigmentation Australia, and welcome to another 5-minute fast facts on scalp micropigmentation, the Pro Artist Series, where we're interviewing some amazing scalp micropigmentation artists from around the world and getting their tips and tricks on how you can get the best out of your scalp micropigmentation transformation. So today's guest is located in South London. He has been in the scalp micropigmentation industry longer than most people would think, coming up 7 years, and he has an extensive history of results working with a well-known in the well-known medical precinct of central London with a UK top hair transplant surgeon. He did all of this before deciding to start all out on his own, creating the Appear Natural brand. He's well known within the industry as an absolute perfectionist, and many men within the SMP industry trust only this guy to look after their own SMP results. Today we're talking with Ollie Hughes. Welcome, Ollie.
Oh, stop it. Hi. Nice to speak to you, Caitlin. How you doing?
Thanks very much for joining us and taking the time out today to have a chat.
Always, not a problem.
Lovely.
Pleasure.
Right, so let's start at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to enter the SMP industry, and what were you up to before you began your SMP journey?
So, in a nutshell, I actually studied theatre. I wanted to be an actor. To be honest, it was probably a hair loss issue, though. I found that because I was already sort of shaving my head without the hairline in my early 20s, I was kind of typecast. So I realised quite shortly after sort of getting my agent that I was being put up for thug, drug dealer, and I realised I was never going to play Romeo or one of the leading male. So I kind of got a bit disillusioned with it. Was considering becoming a teacher, and that's when I had my SMP done. At the time, there was only a couple of companies in the country, and I just got along with my practitioner. I wasn't looking for a job, but he could see I was very meticulous about how mine should look. I was very much a perfectionist in that sense. I was just sort of telling him that I'd always been very artistic, and I think the cogs started to turn in his head. And he took me on, and that was one of the sort of bigger companies, multi-clinic companies in the industry. And after working for them for a couple of years, I moved on to my own thing, and never looked back.
Yeah, brilliant. And what is it that you love most about performing the scalp micropigmentation treatments on your clients? I
mean, at the risk of sounding cliche, I'm sure you'll agree, is the job satisfaction of being able to make someone happy every day. Just watching people walk out of the clinic with their shoulders held back a little bit higher, and and to hear the stories that I'm sure you find it as well, Caitlin. When people go away just after having had the SMP done, you seem to find that they find other successes in their life as a knock-on effect. That it might be that they have health or fitness goals that they go on to sort of carry on with after having, because that SMP sort of sparks that confidence in them. Yeah. Or they go on to sort of success in their career. It really is such a nice job to be able to do.
Yeah. And you have worked within a hair transplant clinic, a fair bit of experience there. So why do you feel like maybe people favour scalp micropigmentation as opposed to maybe going down the hair transplant path or using medications or other remedies?
I think it's because, as we know, there are variables in any industry, and there are obviously variables in SMP, but I think with the hair transplant more so, and it's with SMP, it's more direct. You can see the area that you need to fill and that you need to improve on the scalp, and you can make that improvement directly. Obviously, as we know, and I know you work with a surgeon as well, Caitlin. It's not that easy with the transplant. It's whether the skin's going to sort of receive the follicle well, what the sort of the quality of the graft is. So there's so many things that can sort of be a stumbling block with that. You do get great results, as you know, but a lot of the time people are left wanting a bit.
Yeah.
which then I suppose is where, you know, combination treatments come into play, where, you know, you can use the transplants and SNP in conjunction with each other. But, you know, it is obviously, it's the fact that it's non-surgical as well.
Yeah.
It's less invasive. So in you know, in layman's terms, it's less scary for people as well. So there are a lot of benefits. Yeah.
Yeah. And you really do look after your body as well. So do you feel like maybe people are also in that boat where they don't want to be taking medications unless they have to? So do you feel like there's this way of people steering away from using medications and maybe just want to go on to using, you know, having scalp micropigmentation, because once it's done, it's done. There's no real ongoing maintenance with that?
Definitely. You know, as we know, finasteride, which is commonly used in conjunction with transplants, you know, there are a lot of side effects. Not always, but you know, it can be safe for some people, but there is a slight risk with that. You know, hormonal risk. So yeah, absolutely. I think people are more savvy to that. So yeah, that's definitely something that's probably comes into play as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And you've been in the industry doing scalp micropigmentation for a long time now. So how have you seen over the last 7 years or so, how have you seen the style of SNP results change in that time? Do you feel like there was, you know, the work that you were creating 7 years ago is quite different to what we create now? And what do you think the changes are?
Yeah, I definitely feel in terms of the sort of natural soft hairline, I think what we would have categorized 6 or 7 years ago as a sort of softer hairline or a broken hairline actually now looks reasonably. I can only speak from my personal work. Actually, when I look back, it's still reasonably hard, reasonably sort of a reasonably bold line. So I think people are a lot more brave in terms of how far outside the actual bulk of the hairline that you can go in terms of scattering and sort of really creating that soft look. So yeah, I do think it's more and more natural. Obviously, the products and the equipment that we're now using is, you know, you can get a much finer impression, which is obviously going to help the results in that sense as well.
Yeah. So talking about touch-ups, on average, so someone that looks after their scalp reasonably well, on average, when can a client expect to come in from a touch-up or a redarkening, as some people call it, after their initial treatment course has been finished?
I mean, as we know, it does vary. You do get the guys, if they're sort of sun worshippers, if they're not taking care of their heads, or if they've got particularly dry skin, then it can be sort of maybe 2 years. That would be like the lower end of the spectrum. But I'd say 3 or 4 years in general is around an average that people would expect to need a top up. I was one of the lucky ones. I really looked after my treatment, and it was only actually recently, after having it done for nearly 7 years, that I required a top up. So, but yeah, in general, as a ballpark, I'd say 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, brilliant. And when we do touch-up sessions, how long do those sessions usually go for? Is it just usually one redarkening and maybe just a check, or how do you like to do your redarkenings?
Yeah, I think very rarely would it ever require more than one session for a top up, because as we know, the treatment will never disappear. I think that's what a lot of sort of customers coming into sort of looking at this treatment will get confused slightly. They assume that it's going to sort of completely disappear over the 4 years, when actually it will die down to the point where you need a top up. And in that sense, it's only ever going to be that one session just to sort of give it that kick that it needs and give it that added sort of depth and texture.
Yeah.
So yeah, unless there was extreme fading, I would normally be able to do a top up in one session. Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. And do you feel like in the beginning, so seven years ago or so, do you feel like people were coming more often for touch-ups than they do now, or do you think it's the reverse? Do you find that your clients aren't coming back as often as they used to? Which sort of way around is it? And do you feel like the finer impressions that we create now, do you think the longevity is the same as the older style SNP? What are your thoughts?
I think actually it's around the same, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
Again, depending on the treatment. If someone wants a particularly natural treatment, then as you mentioned, you know, naturally you're going to be using a finer impression and potentially a sort of slightly sort of shallower depth. So while they will get that natural look they want, it will make it slightly more susceptible to fading. But yeah, in general, I think it's pretty much the same, to be honest.
Yeah. And when do you feel, what are the signs that someone might need to look out for that they're due for a touch up? When is it, what are they looking for?
I think they'd be looking for, depending on their hair length, you know, they might have sort of, for the past couple of years, they might have had their hair at a consistent length, and actually they realise that their hair follicles start to look darker than the pigment around it, you know. So that's going to be the telltale sign, you know. I think as well, obviously, people's hair starts to recede and sort of deepen in the horseshoe area over those, you know, so they're losing hair post-treatment. So obviously it's good to get someone who knows you've had the treatment, obviously, to check the back of your head as well, because there can start to be a disparity in where the pigment is and where your hair is actually receded to in those areas.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, get someone to check as well, because obviously we can't always see around our hair and where it's still looking good.
Yeah, or always come and meet with your practitioner as well and let them have a look and give you some advice.
Exactly. I mean, again, Zoom calls like this are great because obviously, as we know, sometimes we have clients travel from, you know, abroad sometimes. So yeah, that would be a good idea as well.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, Ollie. Your expert views on what clients should expect from long-term results on scalp micropigmentation. Your expert tips and tricks have been appreciated. So thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, thanks for being a part of our 5-minute fast facts on scalp micropigmentation, the Pro Artist series, focusing today on longevity results. So thanks so much, Ollie.
Always a pleasure. Take care.
And if you have any questions or comments, we want to hear from you. So as always, don't be shy. Give us a call or email or pop something in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any updates as we release our latest content. So thanks for watching, and we hope to see you soon.